Today we meet Sarah Calcutt, Chief Executive of City Harvest London, and she shares her journey and experience operating this incredible food redistribution charity. This episode may feel like a diversion from our normal subject matter, but we hear about the amazing entrepreneurial spirit that is required to run this multi-layered organisation, understanding the real difference it makes to their charity and corporate partners, and most importantly, the communities which it serves. Sarah highlights the need for innovative solutions to address food poverty and the potential for City Harvest to expand its model into other regions. She finally reflects on the rewarding nature of working in the charitable sector and offers insights for those considering a career in this field. I hope you enjoy. Hello, today we welcome Sarah on the podcast. Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Absolute pleasure, Steve. Thank you for asking me.
I will allow you to introduce yourself because I think it's always a great first question on the podcast so people can understand how you've ended up speaking to me on this lovely, well, say February, because we're being very positive, afternoon, because no one knows how people get journeys from starting and being at school to getting to their career highs, and it's good for people to get that context because there's so much more to dig in on this one, which we'll explain when you explain what you do.
Okay, so I am the Chief Exec of City Harvest London. We are the original food redistribution charity for London. I've been Chief Exec for 2.5 years, but I volunteered here for 18 months before I applied to be Chief Exec. We have different levels of volunteering here, and we have a thing called the Food Council. So I found City Harvest by making a donation of apples during lockdown, and was recruited to the Food Council, and just gradually found that every time I was in London I was gravitating across to Acton to open up my contacts list to help us change the kind of diet that we deliver by sharing the details with my friends and my colleagues.
And that's it. They've never stopped hearing from me since, I assume.
No, pretty much not, no.
So as you say, your background previous to joining there was in fresh produce, put my teeth in.
Yeah, so basically 30-year career in fresh food, fresh produce primarily, but commercial facing. So for a while I faced Tesco's and a lot of big retailers like that. For 10 years prior to coming here, I was a non-exec for a DEFRA at arm's length body. I was deputy chair of Innovate UK Technology Agritech Board, non-exec for an agritech company. I've worked all over the UK and pretty much all around the world actually at one point in the last few years really. But yeah, I'd reached a point where the non-exec and sort of consultant, you're plugged onto the edge and you've got lots to give, and it's interesting, it's a wonderful way to spend your life, and I met some incredible people, but you're not part of a team. And actually one of the things that's extraordinary about this place is the strength of the team and the really lovely people, and it just felt like an absolute no-brainer. Come be part of the team, it's lovely.
Get on board. So for the layperson such as myself, fresh produce is growing stuff, isn't it? Or
yes, it's fruit and veg. Fruit and veg. Both fresh whole pieces of fruit, but also some of the prepped elements as well. So prep fruit and veg. So Fruit for School scheme, I was involved in that for a while. But principally because I'm a farmer's daughter, my family used to be apple and pear and blackcurrant growers. So looking after blackcurrants for export, but then also apples and pears destined to the major retailers in the UK.
I love it. I assume you didn't get the blackberries like I do, going down the local path and picking them with the kids helping.
No, blackcurrants like Ribena, but not Ribena. Excuse me. We were part of that 1% that didn't make Ribena.
Terrible. Good.
No,
in a good
exciting.
way.
It was all export.
Yeah.
All went into products on the continent. So yeah.
So I think obviously compared with the previous episodes that we've had on Swim Against the Tide, some of our listeners might be surprised, hey, how come we've got a chief exec of a charity on here when a lot of our stuff is about how brands grow and work in challenging markets. But obviously after meeting you and reading a lot more about the charity and what it tries to do, I think you've probably got more entrepreneurial drive than most Silicon Valley startups from what I'm hearing about your, let's call them techniques to get hold of the food. Would you share a little bit about that? Because I think it's fascinating because people will be able to draw parallels to their careers and their industries from what you guys are achieving at City Harvest.
So we have to be very entrepreneurial here because we're hitting sort of dual targets. So an environmental charity with a very beneficial, incredible social impact. So at the moment, City Harvest is sharing about 1.3 million meals worth of food every month. But in 10.5 years, we have never bought a single gram of food. All of it has been donated, and all of it comes from waste streams. So whether that be pallets of lettuces that have been rejected by your retail partner, or that be a batch of biscuits that have failed to launch properly, so you've got stock surplus, we will come and collect it, or you can please bring it to us. And then we have a wonderful army of volunteers who then will break those down and put it up into orders, because we then have over 350 community partners across London. We're currently feeding 123,000 people every week on food that comes out of waste streams rather than coming out of commercial streams. And the reason why we don't buy food is that we don't charge for food either. So when we give food into an organisation, that budget then stays within them, and so they can pay for the counselling and the social prescribing, and a warm, safe space that you can go for a cup of tea and one of those biscuits and have a chat, and it then completely transforms life. Frankly, a cup of tea and a biscuit is the start of that journey to recovery.
God, there's so much to unravel there, but I think the last point, we'll start there and work backwards, because this is something you shared with me when we first met, was this really interesting idea that the concept is, if people are coming in for food, it gets them into somewhere that just gives them that sort of respite and reprieve short, and you can then see what actual help they need. If that, I know they need to eat, obviously, a lot of these people.
Exactly.
But actually it's a lot more than that, isn't it, from your angle?
Yes, so when we're looking after the 20% of the population that can't engage in mainstream retail. So from one end of the scale where they are homeless, and obviously we have a massively increasing, terrifying homeless issue in the UK. So those that are actually on the streets, those that have been made homeless and they're living in temporary accommodation, so they are technically homeless, through to those that are in poor housing. You've got lots of working families that our partners in the community are supporting. These households are short of money every single week, and so we're then seeing a rise in health related illnesses. We're seeing a rise in obesity, because cheap food is not going to be good for you, the fried beige, all the diets, the ultra processed. And so the real mission here is that we're delivering good food out there. The right food to the right people is the mantra. So it's about, and the door is open. If you need help and you have a local community partner and there's an organisation where there's no pressure, you can go there, you can get a hot meal, and if you want to talk to somebody, you can. But if you don't, then you can go every week until you decide that it's okay now, you can trust them and you can talk to them. Well, that's brilliant, because that means they can find out how they can help you, and you've at least made a friend, and then your journey to recovery can begin from there.
Okay, so City Harvest as a charity isn't working, I don't want to call them the end user, but the person that needs the help. You are working with a charity that works with the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in a business sense, we're B2B, and we are purely B2B. So we work directly with over 550 food companies. We have, I'm not sure what the latest count is, probably about 400 corporate partners. So organisations that may send their team in to volunteer in our warehouse under their ESG strategy. But they also may be corporate fundraisers, so we might be their charity of the year. So that that corporate entity will match fund everything that their team fundraises by running up a mountain or doing a marathon or whatever they might do for us. And then there's a lot of altruistic foundations that also support us, because they're looking to invest in social recovery, and so we are the vehicle for that investment in society.
Okay, brilliant. So that's really, really varied, isn't it, from that end? And then in terms
it's a really complicated setup. And it takes a very particular set of skills, and I'm constantly amazed at the resilience of the people in here. They've got really great lateral thought chains going on, and they're looking after their partners, whether they be the corporate ones or whether they be the food ones, incredibly well.
Yeah, it's two very different hats you're wearing, aren't there, and two different skill sets. Yeah. You sort of need to keep one feeding you and then you feeding them, if you use that parlance. And so what you talked about, obviously volunteering is a big part. So what does your sort of senior team look like in terms of managing this incredible setup?
I've got 68 staff that are spread across 3 sites. So I'm sitting in Acton. This is our main warehouse. We've got 14,500 square foot. 10,000 square foot of that is a big warehouse. I mean, it's a shed, as everybody in warehousing will recognise. Big indoor, big outdoor. In the middle there's a huge chiller and a freezer, and there's a lot of ambient storage. So we have a produce sorting area. We have an area where we put up the orders for pantry and for snacks, dairy, everything else. So, and then the outdoor has a wonderful team of loaders on it who then have the load guide, and so they know what each van needs to have on it. and these incredible drivers who know these organisations absolutely inside out. They see them every single day, they know what is needed. That's the first point of contact. So they come back with information going, well, so-and-so's food bank down the road closed, these guys have now got an extra 45 people to feed, I need to take another 20 crates. That sort of, so there's an evolution. We also have a community impact team, and they're the ones who've got the absolutely unenviable job of sorting out the waiting list. So they're there going, well, are they in the right place? Are they the right kind of organisation? Who are they looking after? Can we twin them with somebody else and make one drop? That would that would be wonderful. That speeds things up a bit. But they'll also go and visit and make sure that they're compliant with food safety regulations. Are they registered with the environmental health officer? And what is their mode of delivery? Are they doing a food club? Are they doing a food bank? Do they have a soup kitchen? And how are they offering social prescribing? We do have organisations to whom we just give food and they're just sharing food, and that's good because they're feeding people, but we're really looking for organisations that will then help that progression through, because then when we go to our partners, whether they be food or financial, we can then talk about how we are delivering against their ESG principles, and we give returns to all the businesses that we work with so they can use that in their annual report as well.
Oh, that's fascinating. You're going through all my questions, but it's great. No,
I'm so sorry. I do. Yeah, it's
no, it's brilliant.
It's
because
good what we do, but it sort of goes round and round because everything is linked. Everything is linked.
Yeah, because one of my questions was going to be around how do you know, how do you measure success? Some businesses will have key profit indicators and all of those sorts of things. Whereas, from your point of view, is it the number of charities? Is it the type of charities? Is it your mix, or is there a whole host?
There's a lot of business practice in here that everybody listening to this will recognise. Every department is a budget holder. Every department has KPIs. The KPIs are then evolved down into the teams for individual targets for appraisals, as we do in every kind of business. The targeting here is volume of food in, volume of food out. We don't look at the number of organisations that we engage with. We're looking at the number of people we're feeding.
So that
the real
B2B
driver,
to C sort of thing, yeah.
This is it. It's 123,000. But speaking to the community impact team today, they've got another 11 groups that they have identified that we have capacity to bring on. Well, that's nearly another 11,500 people that we'll be feeding by the end of the financial year. And so success here, every year we look at, well, the food sourcing strategy indicates that we will bring in so many million meals worth of food. Then the operations team have their KPIs around customer service, reliability. Are we delivering when is needed? Because it's not like delivering a parcel. We know that we need to get to the Ealing soup kitchen by this time because their volunteers come in. They've got to have enough time to cook the meal to serve it at lunchtime or at dinner time. So we can't do a normal routing and scheduling operation here. You can't say, well, we've got 16 drops to do, and because of today's traffic, that's the order we're going to do them in. We have to go in that order because that's when their gate is open and that's when they've got people expecting food.
God, it's mind-boggling, isn't it? That organisational team that's required to make sure that. And then from the other side, when obviously you're saying you're not buying any of this food, so you have no, I suppose to a degree, guaranteed inputs to take out, do you?
Nope.
So how on earth do you manage that? How do you get around that?
Partially because we have so many different food donors. So of our 550 companies that donate food to us, some of them we'll only see when they've been to IFE and they very kindly donate the stock from their stand. But some of them we'll collect from 3 or 5 times a week. And so we're providing a stock clearance metric. So you've got great companies like Amazon Fresh. So they made a conscious decision. They want to really invest in their fresh model. They have a just-in-time ordering system, and they're holding stock according to how their stock holding algorithm tells them that people are pausing around an item, what the trends are, these sorts of things. And then every day, once that's a stock item, your pat of butter or your pint of milk or whatever, they've got to guarantee so much time in your fridge, and once that piece of stock actually falls out of that window where you can now be selling it to your customer, we then go and collect it every morning and it comes out here for redistribution. We give them a mass balance report, we give them a social impact report, we give them case studies. Actually, we do a lot with them, they're fantastic partners. But every food donor will get that. We'll do the the weight of the food, the number of meals that can be made from it, the greenhouse gas that's been averted by them donating to us as opposed to disposal. And we'll talk about, so you give food on a Tuesday, we can talk about the groups that we feed on a Tuesday. So it's all great for then other customers, investors, annual reporting, staff retention, all of these things now really hinge on, do your morals align to your staff and the business that you want to be part of.
That's fascinating. And I suppose to some aspect where you're talking about that, there is a cost to that of that waste to somebody like Amazon Fresh, isn't it? That they can't just dump it, so they've got to get rid of it somehow. So actually, it gives you a little bit of knowing that look, within 10%, they're going to probably keep giving that much butter, that much milk, that much whatever fresh produce that you've got.
This is it. And if you look at you've got the hierarchy of needs, you've got the food hierarchy as well. And if you've got edible food, should it not be going to people before it goes to biogas? But the challenge is the cost. So it's not just you're going to pay for it to go to biogas, go to AD, but also you need to have a member of staff that is managing the relationship. So if you make the decision to divert your surplus into a redistribution charity, you're also making an altruistic investment within your own business as well to ensure that you've got a member of staff that picks up the phone or writes the email to my team downstairs. And we've got 6 food sourcing managers. They are magic. I have never met an account management team like them. And so they are the ones who go, right, that's fantastic. We've got Bob in a van on Tuesday and he can come and pick it up. We'll be there by 3. And so it's those sorts of, quick thinking, connected individuals that make this thing work.
It's incredible, isn't it? And in terms of the logistics and the transport, is it your own setup then, or are you relying on that is something you have invested in? Because it's sort of like the lifeblood, isn't it, of how you get from A to B, really?
Yeah. So the core of the fleet is 15 Mercedes Sprinters vans, and so they make the bulk of the deliveries out to our community partners 6 days a week. We then got 2 7.5-tonne lorries, one paid for by the livery companies of London, so there's nearly 50 livery companies that contributed to that. One of the vans was also paid for by livery companies, and they are all actually sponsored. All of these are sponsored elements of the operation, and we've just been gifted a 28-tonne lorry as well. And that is really, really magic, because we spend a lot on third-party logistics. We've got some great haulage partners. They are really reliable. They do a fab job for us, but it's a big expense. So now we've been able to take charge of some of that expenditure, and actually one of our teams had a promotion. He's done his ticket. He's now got a big shiny new toy to drive, so he's feeling great. But also we've got somebody that we can show progression for our team, and he's getting very excited about going out in that. Hasn't got wing mirrors. It's got cameras. It's all spangly. It's great. But it means that we can go and collect for ourselves. Yeah. And that cost saving is going to be fantastic.
And not only the cost saving, I assume it brings you some security knowing that you're going to get it, so you know it's coming. You're not waiting in case a lorry gets diverted from a supplier.
Absolutely.
For their own commercial needs sometimes. They can't help it.
With the best will in the world, if they're going to give an altruistic deal to a charity, then sometimes we have to come second in the queue, and we totally accept that. It's fine, because they're super helpful 99% of the time anyway, but just that reduction in that 3PL bill will really help.
Yeah. So it's just brilliant, this. So in terms of you and being there as the boss, so to speak, in terms of title, now I know you're very bashful about the amazing team you have, but how do you work out where your time's got to go?
My biggest failing probably is because I have a farming background. I'm a doer and a solver, and I am quite certain I drive half of them absolutely mad most of the time, sticking my nose in where they possibly don't need me to. It is quite challenging not to be operational in this job. I'm really fortunate. I've had a really lovely career. I mean, I sort of brush it. I've had 30 years commercial food and farming. I've done some really cool jobs. I've been very, very fortunate, and I've been fortunate in being quite mobile in terms of the range of jobs that I've done. So there was a phrase jokingly said in my interview process saying I was a Swiss Army knife of a chief exec. So I have managed a logistics operation. I've been an operations director, but I've also run a communications team as well as leading organisations, and also going in and reorganising organisations. So I've got a nice pot of skills which are useful in here, and it is definitely, chief executive of a charity is a role for someone who's pretty agile in their thinking. It's got to be said, because no 2 days are ever the same.
I think so as well, and especially the type of charity and the way it operates, isn't it? It's not as though you're going, let's go find loads of funders and loads of people doing good stuff, get the money and then spend it. you're having to actually just continually juggle the good of people.
Yeah, it is. And, and we have experts. I haven't yet spoken about my amazing fundraising team. So we've got 6 people there, managing special events, managing corporate relationships, looking after corporate volunteering, trust and foundations, high net wealth individuals. There's a really specialist skill set I'm looking that way because I sit outside my office door. And they build really valuable long-term relationships with these groups because they can see, and thankfully they're keen to invest in what we're doing and the impact that we have in communities. And we have a calculator for social return on investment. We're currently running at £11.70 for every pound invested in communities through City Harvest.
Wow.
That's the quantum of difference we can make.
So go back to, like you say, in terms of corporate partners, which you've said are very important to you as well, you can show and report a real difference that they're making with their both time and money.
Absolutely. Yeah, we will have a campaign called Equals, so £1 equals 3 meals. An hour of your time is 530 meals sorted, because that's the weight of the food that an average individual will sort in our warehouse in an hour. So we can really quantify what they're contributing to us. But valuable time and money.
Yeah, and forget, like you say, the physical timing. So of the staff that you mentioned, of 68, I think you said, are they all employed at the moment, or is that part employed? Okay. And so then what sort of percentage do you have in terms of volunteers that are being, time being donated from your partners and from, I suppose, for anybody really?
In terms of numbers, it's 1/3 corporate, 1/3 community, 2/3 corporate in terms of numbers of bodies, but in terms of hours, it's exact opposite. So it's 22,000 hours of community time and 10,500 hours of corporate time.
Okay.
In 12 months.
Yeah. And how does that, do you sort of need, in terms, I'm going back to your planning again, thinking, right, you've got these core people doing these core roles, but you're always going to, at certain times a year, I'm assuming that demand increases, or
absolutely.
How do you flex that? How do you work that through?
So volunteering is worth essentially 14 full-time equivalents every day of the week.
Yeah.
So that's how we're managing the resource downstairs. But some of our volunteers also do other things as well. So we have an amazing guy who is a vice president of Fortune 50 in charge of IT, and he is managing our CRM project, lucky man. We have another fabulous lady who is an intern, but she's volunteering 3 days a week for us. She's doing research for the fundraising team, and she's doing some really interesting writing and research for the comms team as well. Super bright, absolutely super bright. But she wanted to come and be an intern. I don't have a budget for interns, so she's given us 3 days a week anyway. So volunteering takes lots of different functions within here. I've got an ex-chief executive of a very well-known food business who's just said, because he came and had a look and had a day with us and helped in the warehouse, went out on a van, helped some deliveries, came back and went, "A million years ago I used to be a delivery driver. Would you like me to help you out? I'd love to come and drive one of your vans." Yes, why not?
Incredible.
So there's lots of layers where people can help. And you asked about flex. Yes, we have one of the most flexible volunteering models that I've come across. And we've just got the Investors in Volunteering standard for it too, which is just brilliant recognition for the lovely team. But people can come as little or as often as they like. So a great example, I've got this wonderful lady who used to be in the diplomatic service. She now lives in Paris, but she is American. When she goes to New York, she volunteers for City Harvest New York. When she's in London, she volunteers for us. And when she's at home in Paris, she volunteers in a soup kitchen. So she comes and spends a week with us once every 3 months. And that's fine, because we look forward to seeing her. She signs up on the book, she chooses the shifts. Each shift has got a heat indicator on there, and if we've got a shift that's proven for whatever reason hugely unpopular, there's one of those awful WhatsApp groups that will send you a little message going, "Hello, at Tuesday at 2 o'clock, no one's coming, please could we have some help?" And everybody flurries in and it's all fine. It's really lovely.
Incredible, isn't it? So be it on goodwill, but obviously goodwill based upon making a massive difference, so people... Yeah. It's not as though you're going and you can't see, is it? No. We try really hard to look after the volunteers. We look after everybody really well. We try very, very hard. Downstairs, there's always really great music. We started off with Vivaldi this morning, first thing on the Music in the Warehouse. By lunchtime, obviously, there's a couple of wonderful German volunteers. We had some real hardcore Daft Punk type German techno going on. There's a bit of Bing Crosby. I don't know if you can hear it through the wall at the moment. So there's always music and there's a microphone. So if you need to do some karaoke, you can always come and sing, Steve. It always happens in there.
But
be careful what you wish for there, Sarah.
we also have a tuck shop, so no judgment on anybody. We have a number of community volunteers, particularly who come and work because it helps them. They might have just been recent arrivals in the UK, and this is what they can do. They've got no right to work, they have no income, no benefits yet and things, but they come here, we'll find someone who can speak their language, they can come and join a team, make some friends, start learning some English in an informal sense. But we also have a tuck shop, so we've got a greengrocer's, a fridge, a freezer, and so you can take home a bag of food. So anybody coming here, it could be the chief exec of HSBC, it doesn't matter who it is who comes and works in the warehouse for the day, take some food home. We feed everybody.
Incredible.
And it helps, and it creates an environment where people will want to come and spend the day. Hopefully it's got a nice warm atmosphere. Hopefully you're going to like the music depending on your taste, but you should be hopefully really welcome. 2 days a week we have hot food. Mondays and Thursdays we have volunteers who'll cook lunch for everybody as well.
And do you get more volunteers those days nowadays when they understand?
For the corporates, people are starting realising it's the people we really want to chat up. But
Let's go. Oh, Thursday, I'm free all of a sudden. You can't believe it. My diary's opened up. That's brilliant. So you've been at this, 2.5 years. Has it sort of really humbled you to see what goes on behind these organisations?
It's completely changed my view on life in every possible way. It really, really has. I come from a family where multiple generations of people who've been spokespeople for the farming industry. When my dad passed away, I got this wonderful flurry of letters, and we worked out there'd been 43 organisations that he'd led, founded, been chair of, jumped up and down. He made himself hugely unpopular in the NFU, shouting about the rights of berry growers and top fruit and things. So I come from a family that is there being like, you can go and be the spokesperson, you can go and be a champion. And so I've always had roles where I could hopefully make a difference, and improve the lot of somebody. This is definitely my natural home. Originally I was a musician. I do a lot of am-dram. I've got a pretty musical, theatrical, loud, diverse crew in here, so I feel at home because I've got a lot of people like me here. But it's good to be part of something that's mopping up the huge waste of food that we have in the UK. And you think 1/3 of all food produced in the world goes to waste, and I've spent 30 years on and off being part of an industry which is having to stick to, frankly, quite unnatural standards. From a consumer perspective, we've all been taught now that it has to be perfect and symmetrical and blemish free, and almost sort of Disney in its perfectness. But at the same time, we've got 20% of the population that actually can't afford that food, and an industry that gets penalised for having something that isn't perfect. And so actually to be able to join up everything I've done in my past with this organisation and the people that we care for is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's the best thing I could possibly think of. My mother jokes, says it's my midlife crisis job. I think she had aspirations of me being chairman of somebody's board or whatever it's going to be. But actually I had a 30-year apprenticeship, I feel.
Exactly. I mean, that's a great, isn't it? That in terms of that, wherever you start, you probably rarely finish, do you, the way you think. And it's just as you gain more and more experience and more life skills that you go, actually, you suddenly, the bell goes. So did you actively look for the role, or were you approached, or how did you end up there from, because like your background, I suppose you could have come across it a bit from a supply point of view, but...
Yeah, so I blame the Lord Mayor. So I...
Which one?
2020 Lord Mayor.
Okay.
William Hillary Russell. So basically how it goes is I used to chair the fruit industry's charity, something my family had been involved in for years and years, and it was wonderful. So a lot of the time I was working for myself and doing these non-exec roles, actually it was around being able to do that charity. So there's a trade show and an education programme, and it was such a big part of my life. And during lockdown we decided we'd have an online show, and we'd still have the competition, because National Fruit Show in the UK has the world's largest display of apples and pears, commercial display, 30 linear metres at its peak. It's absolutely glorious. And that fruit used to go for auction or go on a tour or used to be handed to charities. So during lockdown, our president said, well, my friend is the Lady Mayoress this year. There's this wonderful charity they're working with. We should give the apples to them because they're looking after children and key workers during lockdown, and they're doing amazing things. And that's how I got introduced to City Harvest. So from there, as a food donor, so from there, I've been part of the Food Council, so I volunteered. and helped introduce more produce companies, because it was the beginning of the journey to improve the diet quality. So not just any food, it was good food.
Yeah.
And actually I was approached to see whether I might like to chair the board, was actually my managerial approach for City Harvest. And at that point they had just lost their chief exec, and one of our founders had stepped up into an interim chief exec position. And I said to him, actually, could I go for the other job, please? I think I'd quite like to be part of the team.
Which is a bit you loved, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a very emotional response, and it wasn't part of the long-term plan either, but I don't regret it.
Good. That's good to hear. And so in terms of, like, you talked about how that organisation chose City Harvest, how rigorous are you in choosing the charities that you obviously distribute through?
We're very rigorous, excuse me. So people will make an approach either by phone or by email or via our website. We'll work out where they are, so we have a tiered waiting list. So the plan being that at the moment we're within 30 boroughs, but some boroughs we don't have a lot of capacity in, so there's key targets. So Lewisham, for instance, is a key target. We're building our resource and building our ability. So we've been looking at Lewisham as a borough. So within that borough we've got organisations that may have been on that waiting list for a couple of years now, but they've stayed on the warm waiting list because they are the right kind of organisation, and by that we mean they're registered with an EHO, they've got a permanent tenancy in a building, they're running a regular service. Now, they may be doing a referral food bank, but it might be a non-referral food bank. But what they're doing by having free food is then doing the social prescribing. And the social prescribing is helping with childcare, debt advice, legal advice, housing advice, training for work, access to technology, all sorts of things. So helping them with the building blocks that actually will make life feel a little less desperate, and supporting their physical and mental well-being by providing a better diet. And some of that can be in the form of, access to emergency white goods. One of the biggest shocking stats that had never even crossed my mind in 10 years ago, 5 years ago, going, people that need to learn how to cook, they'd be much healthier if they cooked. But let's not forget, of course, if you've got no money in your household, you can't keep up the HP on your cooker, let alone pay for the electricity to turn it on. One of the things that I was advised when I was still on the volunteering phase of my involvement here, one of the community team said, what you want to do is turn off everything in your house and then turn the cooker on and watch what happens to your smart meter. And there is nothing in your house that will make that thing go round faster than your cooker. Yeah. And
scary,
Henry Dimbleby's book, published 2 years ago now, said that there were 800,000 households that didn't have a fridge or a cooker. That's closer to 2 million now. So it's not that they won't cook, it's that they can't. And so you then have, so what can we provide these organisations so they can facilitate a meal that can be cooked in a microwave and using a kettle, because they don't take very much power at all.
Yeah.
And how often is the service available to that person to make sure they have regular food? And is there any funds that will help them with emergency electricity and will help them find some white goods, or maybe a slow cooker, or maybe an air fryer, or something like that? There's many layers to this.
And are you and the organisation doing that as well, or have you partnered with people who help maybe more with the white goods?
We do some referring, but it's one of the reasons why we really like the organisations that are set up for doing social prescribing, because we can help them build their network, but also we're looking to invest the food in those that are doing much more of that, to help them grow and help their impact and help their client numbers. We provide the food for free, it helps them fund far more.
So I think we've sort of covered this in bits and pieces, but if you were to do a pitch now for how businesses in London can help, or even further afield in terms of supply, I assume, what would be your pitch? Because you do produce, as we've seen earlier, a lot of reports as well with this age of CSR and of this sort of ESG that companies are talking a lot about. You've got a ready-made solution for them, from what I can hear.
Absolutely, we do talk to ourselves about being a sustainability solution for businesses. So if there's a food business member on the call, so if you have any surplus stock, speak to us about your surplus stock, because it's going to cost a fortune for you to dispose of it through biogas. And also, if it's edible, if you'd eat it, then I definitely can find somebody who would love it. Yeah. We'll collect it for free. We'll send you an impact report that you can use in your annual accounts. If there's any containers, then we can return them to you. If it's an IFCO crate, we're an IFCO crate partner, so can de-hire that. There's lots and lots of great solutions for the food businesses. So essentially, if it's legally compliant, it's in packaging that says eat now, cook it this way, store it that way. Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
For other businesses who might have an ESG strategy that has staff time within it, we love a corporate partner. We love Charity of the Year status. I've got a very high octane team out here that will really love looking after you. But though we have teams who are running the Hackney Half Marathon, they're doing the London Marathon. I was with a team dressed up as Father Christmas running around St Paul's at Christmas. You know, we do lots and lots of things like that. And lots of businesses may have a fund that will match fund their staff activities. And obviously we do a great volunteering day system here, so if anybody wanted to do a staff away day and come and do some real good for the community of London, then come to City Harvest in Acton or in Spitalfields or in New Covent Garden Market, because those two places will get you into side markets that are general the public you can't go and visit. So either go and sort produce or come here and sort food generally.
In a nice way, you don't need any skills, do you? You just need some energy and a good attitude, I assume.
Yeah. And you might, if you're really favoured, you get to come on a Thursday and have lunch with Pam, and you can choose the music on the stereo as well.
There we go. Yeah. So musically minded will help from that end. So you mentioned that there are different City Harvests. What is the wider setup? Because you're City Harvest London, aren't you? That you're chief exec of.
Yeah. So one of our founders, Steve Winningham, was a trustee of the original City Harvest in New York, which is over 40 years old now. Steve and his wife Laura, and Laura was our original chief exec for the first 10 years. Steve was a trustee over there. They were both moved to London for work, and they had a friend who was a trustee of a soup kitchen just around the corner called the Upper Room, who we still look after. So our first ever founding community partner still gets food from us every week. And Bruce was saying, we need to find more. There's more people that we feed, but we need to find more food. And Steve was saying, we know how this works. And kind of the rest is history. The first year we shared 120,000 meals worth of food. One man, a van, food sorting, phenomenal Winningham family. They are amazing. And now this financial year, we'll share around 15.2 million meals worth of food.
That's incredible. And what's the time period? When was London founded?
2014, September 2014.
Oh my word, I thought you were going to say like 20, 25 years.
No, we're 10 years old.
Just over 10 years old.
We are 10 years old. So Laura, as you say, Laura led us for the first 8. I've been in place for the last 2.5. And we owe her a huge debt because she poured everything into this. And their knowledge of analysing markets, data, we're incredibly data driven here. We collect so much information. It's why we can be very, very certain about what our social impact is and what our environmental impact is, because we're measuring that correctly.
Incredible. And are there plans, obviously, that London hasn't got the franchise on people being hungry and not getting the help they need. Are there plans to widen the City Harvest, not franchise, but concept into other cities in the UK?
Yes, we're just in the middle of a strategy building session at the moment. We already have partners in a lot of other cities, so obviously we're not alone in the UK. There's some absolutely phenomenal organisations in the redistribution space. I co-chair a network called the Excess Network, which was set up quite a few years ago now. And the basic premise going, sometimes we get offered far too much that we could ever share with London. Right. So actually to have partners in other cities that we can then send a little message going, hello, we've been given a container of mango. We can't eat that much mango in London, would you like some? And it really is as simple as that. And then there's one major partner called the Bread and Butter Thing who are in Manchester, and so they will send a lorry to the dock or to here and take a lorry north and then help distribute it northwards, and then we'll help do London and the South East and share it that way. But there's lots of organisations in there who, in to a larger or smaller extent, they're very much like us. Some of them are founded around skills for work. So actually the food warehouse is the facilitator for training for work. They've got I visited a fantastic one just after Christmas in Milton Keynes, basically, which is the food warehouse facilitates training for work, and they've had thousands of people go through there. Young people who've come out of school or been suspended or removed from school, so they haven't got the qualifications, no experience, not loving authority, but needing to do something and needing to have skills for work. And so they do the literacy, the numeracy training, and they do the skills for work in a warehouse, and help them get used to working with people, be part of a team, learn valuable skills, and help them get jobs. So there's organisations like that within the network too. As a beneficial byproduct of that one, they're feeding 80,000 people every week as well.
And sorry, carry on.
I was going to say, so the model for City Harvest, so we're having a look at a couple of different models which actually would work elsewhere. Our model as it is at the moment works brilliantly for London, but we definitely can't do a cut, paste and repeat anywhere else, because logistically, everyone's reasonably close together here, and as long as you can negotiate the hideous traffic, then you're fine. But if we say looked at Kent, Kent is lovely, and it's where I come from. I'd be very keen to go closer to home, but of course you've got major arterial roads that go out of the county, but it's really hard to cross it. And you've got sort of lines, so the coastal line, the North Kent, the M2, M20 corridors. And so a different model is needed for Kent, so we're exploring different options as to what might work best, for instance, there. And there's lots of unrecovered food in lots of regions too, so we're looking at working with other organisations, maybe helping with their model, helping them with food. Already 6% of the volume that we source is going to other organisations anyway, outside of our network.
That's brilliant. So a little bit of reflection then, in terms of, it's fascinating to hear you talk about what you do. Not what you do, but how it's organised and how's that. What advice or what would you say to people considering a career in what they would maybe see as this charitable sector, which they might think is, let's not be rude, but they might think, it's a bit sleepy, it's not going to be quite the same as the cut and thrust of a big corporate. What would you say to them after, I think they could hear what you answered, but what would you say to them as your advice?
Until you actually work in the third sector, you don't understand how slick and how organised you have to be. Yes, you can have lovely little, you can have a little small charity that has a core objective and just deliver that little piece. But if you're going to really make a difference and have an operation like City Harvest, you've got to be a very slick, very commercial orientated organisation. And it's a very particular person. So I talked earlier about these really fantastic account managers and these really talented individuals. I've got a lot of very, very good lateral thinkers in here, a lot of very good problem solvers, because if you're running a commercial food business, if you're going to be making spaghetti bolognese, you know what your sales cycle is. You've got an algorithm that tells you what your purchasing pattern is in your year-on-year data. You know what your spaghetti is likely to cost and what the other ingredients will be, and you can phase it. We can't.
Yeah.
We do know, roughly speaking, to about 70% accuracy what will come in the door by category each week, but we may not get it when we're expecting it. It may not be the volume that we're expecting, and sometimes we get glorious surprises. We were promised 3 pallets and actually there's 22. Okay, and so we have to
manage.
We can manage it. So it is not going to be like any other commercial role that anybody's ever taken on, but I tell you what, the atmosphere and the reward is far in excess of the pay packet. And the money here very much is focused on delivering food to people who are really unfortunate. We do look after our staff really well. We start with London Living Wage. Don't want to say this is a poorly paid role in any way. We try very hard to look after our staff, and a professional charity will really look after their people. But the rewards are far more than actually, I can afford a holiday this year.
I mean, hearing you sing, Sarah, will be one of the big things of the job interview. Or finding out if they
part
can
of the karaoke at parties, yes.
I think we've had a lot of mention of that now. I'm realising that is a thing, as they say, at City Harvest nowadays.
But it's the character of the place. It's one of those. I know when something's really badly wrong if the music's not on.
Okay, yeah.
If it's quiet, there's something not great going on, and it's kind of like the universal signal. Let's head downstairs. But music is all about mood, isn't it? And it's all about atmosphere, and so you maintain that good atmosphere.
It was interesting. We went on holiday last year, just talking about that. We flew out for the first time, living up in Yorkshire, from the East Midlands Airport, and I got chatting to, when we were going through security, and obviously there's those big queues. We're school kids, so we're right at the busy time, and there was music, and it was music not quite at your trans German whatever, but it was really uplifting and quite loud. And I was asking the guy, I got chatting to him, because obviously in the queue for a while, and good old British were all fine. And he said, yeah, it's a test just to see if that slight element of distraction just keeps everybody happy and keeps everybody moving and stops people getting stressed, because obviously for a lot of people, travel is stressful. And he said, so I said, okay, how's it working? He said, it's brilliant. We've had about half a reduction in the number of people basically having a go at us. And people are suddenly just like that. And you found yourself suddenly just forgetting to even move along the queue because you're listening to a cool record.
Yep.
So yeah, there you go. Music makes the world go.
My first day here was an undercover boss day. So I started on the day when there was a staff town hall at the end of the day. So nobody knew in the staff, other than the HR director, who I was. And so I was popped on a van with one of the drivers, who is a singer. And we went out and we went to one of the groups that he delivers to. And they put music on as he arrived and literally danced down the path. So he's Brazilian, so it's really the beat was going, and it's part of it. It's that whole celebration. There is food. City Harvest has delivered.
Brilliant. I love that. It's just great, isn't it? It's just a wonderful thing. So I normally ask a couple of questions of reflection of yourself. I think I know the answer to this one. I'm assuming you've not regretted taking this role, Sarah.
Not for a minute, no. I get very tired. I don't live anywhere near the office, but I get in here and I see the people and I see the reports on how much we've delivered, and everything we've done is fine. It's fine. Everything's
okay. Yeah, that's wonderful. And you mentioned earlier about your uncle. Can we just finish on that? Giving you this 30-year career plan, or giving you a kick up your arse when you were 30 because he didn't think you had a plan. Was this in it? Was this on his plan?
Oh no, not even slightly, no. So he sat me down and just said, look, you aren't married, you haven't got a child, just about to start a third degree. What are you playing at? What is the career looking like? So I did music, and I did commercial horticulture, and I did leadership in educational management. So
well, hang on, they're all here now, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all in part of it.
You knew, didn't you? You knew this was coming.
I told you, I've been an apprentice for 30 years. And so he wrote and said, look, you need to do this, you need to do this scholarship, and you need to get onto this diploma course, and actually you need to be thinking about where you're going to be promoted to. What training do you need for promotion? By the time you're 40, Sarah, you should be running your own business. You're not, bless him, he said I wasn't daft, and I was cussed enough to get on with it. So I was cussed enough and got on with it. So by 40, I was married, I had a child, and I was running my own business. Did what I was told.
Tick, tick, tick.
There we go. By 45, he wanted me to have a look at looking at a non-exec career, so I could then start building an exit strategy for full-time working, so I could be a non-exec and get the skills in there. So volunteered for a charity, Sarah. Not that I joined the fruit show for that, but it did prove good training. And learn about being a non-exec, get a qualification in that stage of living. So then, when you'll get bored of being a chief exec or running your own business, you can sell your business. Pick up a pension, go and be a non-exec. So by 50, I had 3 non-exec roles. And then I met City Harvest and I changed direction. He did say somewhere along the way I might want to be chief exec of somebody's business if I wasn't chief exec of my own. So I've just skipped a step and then gone back to it.
He sounds like some sort of clairvoyant. Or you were easily scared.
He did it for a lot of people. He did it for an enormous number of people. It's another one of those ones when you go to the funeral, you then get told all of this stuff. There have to have been 30 of us that he'd sat down and done that for. And he'd encouraged us and kept in, for those that weren't family, he'd kept in touch with them and ensure that they progressed. One of the things he said that we should be doing as well is getting involved in livery companies. So I actually managed to do 2 in 1. I got a scholarship funded by a livery company, which I now belong to, which puts me into the livery movement in London, which is absolutely magic to be part of something that's been around for nearly 1,000 years. With all the sort of the network and the friendship and the connections that come from it. And it's great. And of course, livery companies are incredibly important to City Harvest. So to be part of that culture really helps.
Brilliant. Well done, Uncle. That's fantastic. Right, what a story. I think we
there you go,
have
roller coaster.
I think we have 100% dispelled any myths that people may have had about what you do and how you do it in that sector, and actually a shining advert for making a difference in life. We've all got a chance, haven't we? We've all got opportunities. We've all got a choice about what we do. If you've got skills that you think could bring to any charitable organisation, do it. Even if it's just starting with volunteering, because most companies are pretty good now at giving people time to give that balance of life.
Absolutely. And also, if anybody was considering the non-exec career, the best way to get training in a non-exec area is doing the pro bono charitable piece first.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of really good qualifications around being a non-exec, but that charity governance, because you get into managing public money, you're looking at obviously a lot of safeguarding, a lot of due diligence, really important skills if you're going to go in at non-exec level in anybody's business. There's a lot of training available for NCVO, which puts you in really great stead for any other career that you might go on to. But charity sector is just great. It's hard, it's more emotional than business, and it's much harder to close the door on a Friday night, which are the downsides. But the upsides is that particularly when you're in an impact charity like this, you know that you can use your skills for good.
I think it is just, to go back to that point from a, I don't want to call one being commercial and one not being commercial, but more of a corporate side is, I think it's as hard to switch off from there, but for the wrong reasons at the moment. So much better to be switching off for the right reasons than the wrong ones, if that makes sense.
100%. And I've had jobs in the past where you don't get to turn off ever. I mean, I remember getting the absolute chorus of condemnation around the Christmas dinner table when I took a work call.
Well, now if you're taking that call, you're doing good, so they can all carry on with the turkey while you sort it all out.
Yep, come Christmas, it's usually about rescuing turkeys too. It's surprising how many don't get sold.
Oh dear. Let's not go to Christmas. We've just got over that.
Yeah,
right.
no, I know.
Sarah, thank you so much. What you must
pleasure.
share with me is lots of links. We'll put it on the podcast for everybody how they can help, from volunteering to delivering food and everything in between. And keep going, and I'll do my best to introduce you to everybody I know in that sector to see if they
That'd
can
be
help.
amazing. Thank you very much. It's
Thank you,
great
Sarah.
talking. Thank you.